Hello, I'm Emily Rhodes, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the children's Bach by Helen Garner. This is a great novella. It's very slim, a bit too slim to be a novel, I think, by an Australian writer. It was first published in the 80s and has just been recently republished along with two of her other books in these rather beautiful editions. What's fantastic is that Helen Garner, who is still, alive and well, hasn't met with that much recognition beyond Australia, I would say. Her novels aren't that widely read over here in England or in America. But hopefully, I really feel that with these three smart new paperbacks, she's suddenly everywhere and everyone's talking about her and she's getting reviewed and she's coming on tour over here. And, maybe at last this is her moment of breaking into the UK and America. That's my understanding of it. You might think differently, but I'm so glad to be adding my voice to the many voices that are praising this writer, because I really think she's remarkable. You'll see that we're outside. This is a beautiful sunny day. So apologies if you hear dogs barking, rubbish trucks, aeroplanes, that kind of, those sort of London noises. I've got Alfie just beside me here, kind of half in the sun, half in the shade. And yes, let's talk about the children's Bach. How are you getting on with it if you've read it? It's about a family who seem rather kind of perfect on the surface, and into this family, a lot of the books set in their home, their kind of fortress, as it were. Into this home comes this kind of invasion of Elizabeth, who is an old friend of Dexter, who's the sort of father of the family, and Elizabeth's entourage, I suppose. So she's got a much younger sister, and she's got a boyfriend of sorts, and he's called Philip, and his daughter as well, who's about 12. And they live this very undomestic life. Her flat is very kind of open. There's a line where Philip talks about, it's something like he goes and the homes, the beds that he sleeps around, even though Elizabeth's kind of his girlfriend, he sleeps around. There's a moment where it says the beds he ends up in are in the homes where there's more likely to be a syringe than an egg boiling in a saucepan on the stove. And there's a wonderful moment where the other Fox family, who's sort of being invaded, they all sit and have sort of gallons of soup and sort of sing in a very kind of jolly and homely. So it's about this invasion and this destruction of the domestic, but I think it also looks at the fault lines that are there in the domestic anyway. The Fox family isn't perfect. There's a kind of violence simmering away with those eggs in the saucepan. There are certain moments to me where this really ruptured to the surface and felt quite shocking. Particularly, oh God, I'm not going to find the page now. Yeah, so they have these two children, one of whom is severely handicapped. We don't really find out exactly what's wrong with him. And Vicky, who is the much younger sister of Elizabeth, takes Billy off for a walk and pushes him on the swing. And he sings the Sky Boat song while he's on the swing. And yeah, it's kind of this quite amazing moment of freedom, of joy, but there's also something a bit unnerving about it. And then she comes home with him. I'm going to read out a tiny bit. And as she's walking along the path with him, it says, in the half dark, a heavy truck blundered round the corner. The ground shuddered under her footsoles. It tickled her, and in a rapture of disgust, she saw Billy step off the pavement into the gutter. Quick, better for everyone. She took 2 long steps. She gave him a light shove between the shoulder blades, and he walked out under it. The huge wheels swallowed him up like a bunch of beans in a blender, and he was gone, not even a stain on the bitumen. Athena, that's his mother, was in the kitchen and the light was on. There was a big truck, said Vicky, and I thought I could push him under it. Have you ever? Of course, said Athena, hundreds of times. She took hold of the boy by the shoulders and turned him towards the bathroom. He submitted with glazed eyes and a drunken smile. As he passed Vicky, he leaned on her and rubbed his back against her hip. His buttocks rested against her thigh, and she felt the warmth and depth of his flesh. It's just such a horrible fantasy, and this real innocence of this child, and almost the quietness, and how dismissively his mother says, of course she's fantasized about murdering him, pushing him under a truck. Just a page or so earlier, he says, I'm just hanging on till we can get rid of him. Get rid of him, said Elizabeth. Athena's small, calm smile did not alter. The thought of it, she said in her civilized voice, the very thought of it is like a dark cloud rolling away. It's pretty intense. I mean, I think, I don't know, it's a very intense book. And there are other moments, for instance, when they're taking a pet rabbit out into the wild, and it's very cruel. The rabbit's kind of like clinging to the box, and they're just letting him out, kind of knowing it's going to get killed. It's, in some ways, it's very lovely, this home with this soup and the kind of warmth, and the dad always sort of singing. And in other ways, it's incredibly menacing and unhappy and kind of awful. There's a lot of music in the book as well. There was the Sky Boat song I just mentioned. Obviously the title is the children's Bach, and there's this book of Bach that they're all kind of failing to play on the piano, failing in their own different ways. And there's a lot of talk about how music is made, and I think, in any book where there's something about how another art form is made, it invites us to look at how the book is made and how that writing works. It's very much about, I think she says, you put everything in and then take everything out, and let the reader kind of, let the music do the work. And I think one of the things about this book, I mentioned how short it is. I think the prose is so pared back. The sentences are so thin. It's really like the minimum is in there. So she's just shaved and shaved and shaved and shaved it all off. Sometimes this can really make you wonder who is saying something, who is thinking something, as though they've, Garner's even taken away the name of the character. It just says she said. You're like, which one? And we get very little backstory about these characters. It's very in the present moment. So I think there are all sorts of knock-on effects of this sort of sparseness. For me, it makes it quite luminous, very engaging, very powerful. At times, I did find it a little bit confusing. I found it quite hard to get the characters kind of stuck in my head and which one was which. I am also, quite tired, and we've all had a bug. I don't know. But I wonder how you found it. Did you like this style, or did you want a bit more from her? I'd love to know. I am going to read a longer bit now, and perhaps I should warn for spoilers. I mean, it's not it's right at the end of the book, so you do kind of get a feeling of what's happened. I don't think it's such a spoiler though. I just think this part is so beautiful. For me, this is where the book really kind of comes together in this new voice that feels very joyful and kind of extraordinary. So I'm just going to read this out, the last couple of pages. I'm trying to think which bit to start. Okay. She ironed a cloth and spread it on the kitchen table, and then she sat down and waited for them to come home. And they will come. And Vicky will say as they drive in through the gateway, "Hey, the bins are out. Athena must be back." So it's sort of this amazing moment of that being the signal. It's such a domestic, kind of grim job putting the bins out, and that's what signifies Athena's presence. And Billy will not even have noticed her absence. That's the boy. And Arthur will come and stand beside her, trying not to smile. And Vicky and Dexter will not touch her straight away. And the clothes on the line will dry into stiff shapes which loosen when touched. And someone will put the kettle on. And from one day to the next, Poppy will stop holding Philip's hand. He will drop his right hand to her left so she can take it, but nothing will happen. And when he looks down, she'll be standing there beside him, watching for a gap in the traffic, and she will not hold his hand anymore, and she never will again. And Dexter will sit on the edge of the bed to do up his sandals, and Athena will creep over to him and put her head on his knee, and he will take her head in his hands and stroke it with a firm touch. And the tea will go purling into the cup. And Athena will dream again and again, against her will, of Philip, or rather of not Philip, of searching for him, of climbing endless stairs in a building full of rooms whose occupants have just quitted them, leaving warm cushions and sunny floors and disturbed air. And Elizabeth and Vicky and Athena will go to visit Como House. They will go arm in arm through the high rooms and will stoop to examine the inlay tables, the angle of flush in the pink and white marble. And as they approach the paradise, they will feel the city shudder under the soles of their feet, and will see the heavy strands of the fly curtains swing out on a gust of air, and will hear the soft laughter and the slide of dancing shoes on the speckled concrete. And oh, the machine will be hissing, the tables will be clean, the sun will be shining through the glass. And Athena will play Bach on the piano in the empty house, and her left hand will keep up the steady rocking beat, and her right hand will run the arpeggios, will send them flying, will toss handfuls of notes high into the sparkling air. I love it. So beautiful, so kind of hopeful within constraints, I think. It's kind of a transformation of the domestic for me, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts about it. So that is The Children's Bach by Helen Garner, the May book for Emily's Walking Book Club. And you can sign up to learn all about our book club and come along to our walks or our Zooms. It's emilyswalkingbookclub.substack.com.